Sometimes silence is louder than any words you could have spoken. It cuts through the air, heavy and unexplainable, leaving a woman to fill the empty space with her own thoughts, doubts, and fears. You might think you're creating peace by going quiet, that you're avoiding a fight or simply needing space. But what you don't see is what happens inside her mind in that silence. Silence to a woman is not just the absence of words, it's the birth of questions. Questions she never wanted to ask herself. Questions about her worth, about your feelings, about whether the connection you once had is slipping away. She starts replaying every conversation, every gesture, every moment you seem different, trying to piece together a puzzle you haven't given her the pieces for. She wonders if you've lost interest. She wonders if you found someone else. She wonders if she's no longer enough for you. And here's the thing, she won't tell you she's wondering. She'll smile. She'll act like she's fine, but inside the silence is echoing, and the longer it lasts, the deeper it cuts. She'll start adjusting her behavior, trying harder, or maybe she'll stop trying altogether, because silence can either make a woman fight harder for you or make her walk away from you. It depends on how much she believes she matters to you. When you go silent, you may think you're protecting yourself or giving yourself space to think, but in reality, you're making her feel like she's not worth your words. And words are not just communication, they are reassurance, they are connection, they are proof that she's still seen and still valued. So if you go silent, understand this: women don't just hear the quiet, they hear every insecurity, every fear, every what if that comes with it. Silence is powerful, yes. It can destroy as much as it can heal. Use it carefully, because what she secretly thinks in your quiet moments might change how she sees you forever. When a man goes silent, a woman often feels as though someone has turned off the light in a room she didn't even know was dark. At first, she tries to convince herself that it's nothing, that you're just busy, distracted, or lost in your own world. But as the hours turn into days, the quiet becomes something else entirely. It's no longer just a lack of conversation. It's the presence of uncertainty, thick in the air, wrapping itself around her mind until she can't escape it. And uncertainty is a dangerous thing because it feeds on the unknown, it multiplies in the shadows, and it leaves a woman with only one option: to fill the silence with her own interpretations. She starts to wonder what happened. She replays the last conversation in her head like a scene from a movie, pausing and rewinding, searching for something she missed. Did she say something wrong? Did she push too much? Was she too quiet, too loud, too emotional, too detached? Her mind scans through every interaction, looking for evidence to explain the shift. And when she can't find any clear answers, she begins to create them. That's where doubt starts to grow, not because you said anything to hurt her, but because you said nothing at all. The uncertainty becomes an uninvited guest in her mind, sitting there day and night, making her question not just the present moment, but the entire relationship. She wonders if your silence is a punishment, a way of showing her she crossed a line. She wonders if it's indifference, a sign that you no longer care. And here's the truth. Most of the time, it's not about what you're actually thinking. It's about what she thinks you might be thinking. The human mind hates gaps. It will fill them. And in moments of emotional vulnerability, it often fills them with the worst possible scenarios. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back her deepest insecurities. If she's ever felt abandoned before, she'll see your quiet as abandonment. If she's ever felt unworthy, she'll see your quiet as proof she's not worth your time. If she's ever been betrayed, she'll start to suspect betrayal again. This isn't because she's weak or overly sensitive. It's because connection is built on signals. And when those signals go missing, the human heart panics. For a woman who deeply cares, your lack of communication feels like the ground shifting beneath her feet. It's not that she expects you to speak all the time. It's that she needs to know where she stands with you. Silence removes the map. It's like taking a road trip without signs or direction. Suddenly, she has no idea where she's headed or if you're even on the same path. She may try to reach out to bridge the gap, but if your quiet remains, she'll begin to retreat emotionally because uncertainty for too long becomes unbearable. Men often believe that silence is neutral, that by not speaking, they're avoiding adding fuel to a fire. But for a woman who feels the connection slipping, silence doesn't feel neutral at all. It feels like a verdict without explanation, a door slowly closing while she's still standing inside the room. And in that space of not knowing, her mind races to make sense of it, because the uncertainty is often harder to live with than the truth itself. If she knew why you were quiet, she could understand, process, and adapt. But without words, without reassurance, she's left to navigate a maze with no exit, hoping that the quiet will eventually break before it breaks her spirit. Silence is never truly empty. It carries a weight, a tone, an unspoken message that often says more than words ever could. When a man chooses not to speak, it's not simply the absence of sound. It's the presence of something else. It can be a wall, a shield, a withdrawal, or even a quiet scream for space. To the person on the receiving end, that quiet is not blank. It's layered with meaning. And in the mind of a woman, It's decoded over and over until she believes she's found the truth. Every pause, every unanswered message, every moment of withheld communication is read like a sentence with invisible ink. The problem is, invisible ink forces her to imagine what's written, and imagination rarely paints in soft colors when the heart feels uncertain. She starts to interpret your silence as a signal. If you're calm, she wonders if you're detached. If you seem distant, she assumes you're pulling away. If you're too quiet for too long, she starts to feel you're done trying. Whether it's right or wrong, her mind attaches meaning to the absence of your voice. People think words are the main form of communication, but in truth, silence is also a language, and often a more powerful one. It's why a look can replace a sentence, why a pause can replace an argument. But the danger lies in how that silence is received. For you, it may be a moment to think. For her, it may be a sign of rejection. For you, it may be peace. For her, it may be disconnection. Silence has the ability to comfort or destroy depending on the bond and the context. In a healthy moment, it can feel like safety, the type where two people sit together without needing to fill the air. But in moments of tension or emotional distance, that same silence becomes a weapon without a sharp edge, cutting slowly instead of suddenly. She can't hear your reasons. She can only feel the void where your presence used to be. And because silence is open to interpretation, meaning she gives it will often come from her own fears or past experiences. If she's been ignored before, she'll see your quiet as ignoring. If she's been left behind before, she'll see it as you leaving. This is why silence is so powerful. It's a blank canvas, but one that rarely gets painted with optimism when emotions are fragile. The absence of words doesn't mean the absence of impact. In fact, it can hit harder because it leaves no clear way to respond. A woman who feels the distance will search for the hidden message in your silence. She might watch your body language, analyze your tone in the few words you do say, and measure the time it takes you to reply. Every detail becomes evidence in her internal case, and without your input, she becomes the judge, the jury, the storyteller. The story she tells herself might be far from your truth, but once it's written in her heart, it becomes real to her. You may think you're saying nothing, but in reality, you're saying, I won't explain. You may believe your silence is patience, but to her, it may feel like punishment. That's a paradox. Silence is never neutral. It's always speaking, always sending a signal. And when the person who matters to you starts to assign meaning to it without your guidance, you risk letting them believe a story you never intended to tell. When words are missing, mind does not sit still, it works over time. Silence creates a gap, and the human brain is wired to fill gaps with information. The problem is when emotions are involved and clarity is absent, information that fills that gap is often built from fear, insecurity, and worst-case scenarios. For a woman, your silence isn't just quiet. It's an invitation for her imagination to take over. Without reassurance, without some anchor to hold on to, her thoughts begin to wander into dangerous territory, creating stories that may have no basis in reality but feel painfully real in her heart. She may start by asking herself small, almost harmless questions. Is he busy? Is something wrong? But the longer the quiet stretches, the more those questions shift into ones that sting. Has he lost interest? Is he talking to someone else? Did I do something to push him away? The absence of answers forces her to keep searching for them, and with every hour of silence, the emotional weight increases. What could have been a momentary pause now becomes a looming shadow, covering her ability to think clearly. Insecurity doesn't need much to grow. It thrives in the smallest cracks. And silence provides the perfect conditions. If she has ever been betrayed, abandoned, or undervalued before, your quiet will awaken those old wounds instantly. They won't appear as memories. Rather, they'll appear as emotions, a gut feeling that something is wrong. She may not even be able to explain why she feels it. She just knows that the absence of your voice feels like the absence of your care. This is why reassurance matters. Words are more than just sounds. They are proof of presence. They tell someone, I see you, I hear you, matter. Without them, a woman is left to assume whether she matters at all. And when left to assume, most people, especially when vulnerable, will lean toward the negative rather than the positive. It's a kind of emotional self-defense. If she expects the worst, she won't be blindsided if it happens. But living in that mindset hurts more than the truth itself ever could. Silence is not always a reflection of how you feel about her, but to her it might be. The mind rarely says, he's probably just thinking. Instead, it says, he's probably deciding if he wants to stay. The absence of reassurance leaves her to build her own conclusions, and those conclusions often become the foundation for how she behaves moving forward. She might begin pulling away to protect herself, not because she wants to, but because she's preparing for the possibility that you've already started to. What makes this so damaging is that the stories she creates in her mind feel real even if they aren't. The human brain doesn't always distinguish between imagined threats and real ones. The same emotions, the same anxiety, the same heartache can arise from a scenario that never actually happened. So in your silence, she may be grieving something that isn't even lost yet, but in her heart, So she's already feeling the loss, and the cycle feeds itself. Your silence fuels her insecurities. Her insecurities make her act differently, and those changes in her behavior might make you retreat even more, deepening the silence further. By the time someone decides to speak, the damage may already be done. What was once a misunderstanding now feels like a confirmed truth. And it all began because the space you left was filled by the only thing available, her fears. Silence is rarely a pause without consequences. Over time, it changes the way a woman engages with you, often in ways you may not even notice until the distance has grown too wide to close. At first, she may respond to your quiet with more effort, texting you first, checking in more often, finding small ways to bring back your attention. This is her trying to bridge the gap, trying to remind you that there's still something worth protecting between you. She might soften her words, choose her tone more carefully, and even push aside her own feelings just to keep you comfortable enough to speak again. But the longer the silence lingers, the more exhausting this effort becomes. Trying to pull someone closer when they seem determined to drift away is emotionally draining. She begins to notice that she's carrying the weight of the connection alone. Realization changes something deep inside her. What began as hope slowly shifts into self-protection. Her efforts become fewer, her words become shorter, and her tone takes on a kind of distance that mirrors yours, not because she stopped caring, but because caring too much in the face of silence hurts. A woman who was once open and expressive can start to shut down. She stops sharing her thoughts with you because she's no longer sure you're listening. She stops asking how you feel because she's afraid of confirming what she already suspects, that you've emotionally checked out. She might even stop bringing up the things that bother her because she's learned that silence is what she'll get in return. And here's the shift that's most dangerous. She stops expecting you to be there. When silence continues, it doesn't just affect her actions, it rewires her expectations. She begins to believe that she can't rely on you for emotional connection, so she learns to rely on herself. On the surface, this might look like independence, but underneath, it's resignation. She's no longer fighting for closeness. She's adapting to the lack of it. And once a woman adapts to emotional distance, the relationship changes in ways that are hard to reverse. She might start filling the empty space with other things, friends, work, hobbies, or even other emotional connections outside of you. Not necessarily in a way that's meant to hurt you, simply because humans need to feel heard, seen, and valued. If she's not getting that from you, she'll seek it somewhere else, consciously or not. The danger is the longer she lives without your words, the less she feels the need for them. Sometimes silence pushes a woman to fight harder for the relationship. Other times it teaches her to live without it. And once she learns she can live without it, her love for you may still be there, but the urgency to hold on to you fades. She no longer feels the instinct to close the gap because she's already learned to live on her side of it. The bond weakens, not in a dramatic sudden break, but in a slow, quiet unraveling. Ironically, the same way the silence began. By the time you decide to speak again, you may find she's no longer listening in the same way. Not because she's angry, but because her heart has adjusted to the quiet and stopped depending on your voice to feel safe. Silence may feel harmless when it begins, but its effect on her behavior is anything but. It either makes her fight for you or teaches her to let go. And once she chooses the latter, words may not be enough to bring her back. Words are more than just sounds strung together. They are lifelines in a relationship. They are the proof that someone sees you, values you, and chooses you over and over again. For a woman, the words you speak are not merely about conversation. They are a mirror of how much she matters to you. When those words disappear, she doesn't just feel the absence of communication. She feels the absence of care, of connection, of the emotional glue that holds two people together. It's easy to underestimate how much power words hold until they're gone. A simple, "I'm thinking about you," can erase hours of worry. A brief acknowledgement can make her feel understood even if the problem isn't solved. But when silence replaces those moments, it's not just that nothing is said, it's that everything she needs to hear is left unsaid. That gap creates distance, and distance in a relationship rarely stays still, it grows. Words are how we reassure each other that we're still on the same team. They are the check-ins, the clarifications, the reminders of love that keep the heart secure. Without them, a woman has to guess how you feel, and guessing is exhausting. It drains her emotional energy because she's constantly trying to read between lines that aren't even there. She might look for meaning in the smallest gestures. Without your voice confirming her place in your life, those gestures often feel incomplete. It's not that she needs you to talk endlessly or fill every moment with conversation. It's that your words are the bridge between her heart and yours. Without that bridge, she feels stranded, even if you're physically right beside her. She may start to question the depth of your feelings, not because she wants to doubt you, but because silence leaves too much space for uncertainty to grow. And when uncertainty grows unchecked, trust begins to erode, not necessarily trust in your loyalty, but trust in your emotional investment. Even the strongest, most independent woman needs to feel chosen. She needs to know, not just assume, that she still holds a place in your priorities. Words are how you show her that. They are how you pull her back from the edge of doubt, how you keep her from wondering if she's fighting for something you've already let go of. Silence, on the other hand, often feels like you're letting her drift without reaching out a hand. And the truth is, silence rarely feels equal to both people. You might see it as space, but she may experience it as rejection. You might believe it's harmless, but she might feel it as neglect. This is why words matter so much, because they remove the guesswork. They anchor her in the certainty of your feelings instead of leaving her to float in a sea of assumptions. Without consistent words, even the most loving bond can weaken. A woman who once felt secure may start to protect herself by withdrawing emotionally. She may stop sharing her inner world with you, not because she doesn't want to, because she doesn't feel the exchange will be met with the same openness. Over time, this changes the entire dynamic. You stop being her safe place and you become just another person she can't fully reach. It's not grand speeches or poetic declarations she's looking for. It's consistency. It's the everyday words that keep her heart grounded. When you speak, you remind her she's valued. When you stay silent for too long, you risk making her feel invisible. Words don't just fill the air. They hold the relationship together, piece by piece, moment by moment. And when they disappear, so does the closeness that once made the connection feel unbreakable. In the end, silence is never just the absence of sound. It's the presence of a message, whether you mean to send it or not. It can be a bridge or it can be a wall. It can offer peace or it can create distance so deep that the heart no longer knows how to cross it. For a woman, your silence is not an empty space. It's a canvas her mind will paint on. And if you're not guiding that picture with your words, her fears will fill in the colors. The truth is, connection lives and dies in communication. Every time you choose to speak, you breathe life into the bond you share. Every time you choose prolonged quiet without explanation, you risk letting that bond fade in ways you may never be able to repair. So if she matters to you, let her know, not in grand gestures that come and go, but in steady, honest words that make her feel safe in your presence and certain in your love. Because the reality is this: relationships rarely end with one big argument. More often, they die in the slow erosion of unspoken thoughts, unmet needs, and the silent spaces that no one bothers to fill. Thank you for giving your time and your heart to hear this message today. If these words resonated with you, take them as a reminder. Communication is not optional. It's the heartbeat of love. Speak even when it's hard. Listen even when you feel like retreating. And never underestimate the power of the words you choose to give. Thank you, and take care of the connections that take care of you.